It is time, without any further ado, to start an old Brock and Salk favorite. We will count down the top 25 most intriguing Seahawks. Now, intriguing doesn't mean this is not the best Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the guys that are most important or vital or irreplaceable, which we've looked at in the past.
Right.
This is the most intriguing stories around those guys. People you got to see, people you have questions about, people who could change the team depending on how they perform, people that are in some way intriguing.
Number 25.
Number 25 on this list, the first guy on this list is Drew Lock.
Oh. 25 on paper, number one in my heart still.
I know how much you love Drew Lock.
Yes.
He's on this list not because of what he did last year, because obviously he barely played, if at all. I mean, he didn't get on the field.
Gino took every snap.
So there was no Drew Lock to watch last year. But the fact that Gino did play every snap last year tells me that the odds are against him being able to do it again this year.
Kind of like the Mariners starting pitchers.
Kind of.
You just kind of knew going into this year that this doesn't, it now works. That usually there's going to be some injury. Now you hope to avoid significant injury, and the Mariners have not been able to do that. Robbie Ray with a Tommy John, and I don't know. Do you hear anything about Marco Gonzalez?
We talked to Jerry about him on Thursday, and he said he's still not throwing.
Yeah, so it feels like you may be done for the year as well with both of those guys. So for somebody to take every single snap as Gino did, well, that meant the Seahawks were competitive.
But the odds are against a quarterback being able to do that year after year. We saw Russell do it for a long time. We've seen Favre do it. I mean, like Peyton Manning did it for a long time, but it's rare.
Yes.
Usually quarterbacks end up getting hurt at some point. And so who backs up Geno Smith is actually kind of an important question. Pete saying at the end of last year that they really wanted Drew Lock back because of his mindset.
It's interesting, you would ask, because we just had a chance, guys they're speaking to the team, the individual guys on the offensive side and sharing their stories a little bit, their background as we get to know each other. And when both those guys had their chance to present, it was almost like remarkably consistent connection that they have. They really understand each other. They really have great respect for one another, and they're battling. And where Drew would look at it like maybe Gino looked at it last year, kind of. He's ready to play, and he's just waiting for his opportunity. He's going to go for it, and Gino ain't letting it happen.
He made a point, it sure felt like, throughout all of last year, to mention Drew Lock every time he mentioned Geno Smith.
Right.
Maybe that's just about competition, and maybe it's about, just sort of that Pete Carroll mindset of, hey, we don't just have one quarterback the way we used to with Russell Wilson, and he's trying to make that change and make it obvious. But we asked him, hey, why do you always mention Drew Lock when you're talking about Geno Smith?
I think he's really good, and he's shown us that. He's an exciting, has an exciting future. And I many times have probably put it in the light that he is growing too, and he's going to be really good when he gets his chance. And we'll have just as many opportunities to make plays when he's on the field. We see it every day. I mean, he battles every day against our first defense, and competes to try to beat their tails every day. And it's great to see, and he's developing in ways that it just takes time. And so if he's fortunate enough to capture the time in similar fashion that Gino has, he's going to be a terrific player.
He's a talented dude, man. Like, we spend a lot of time talking about these QB prospects, right? And this last draft class had some very intriguing guys. And I was just reading last night that Anthony Richardson is going to split reps with Gardner Minshew, and maybe by week 8 or 9, depending on how the season goes, the ball's going to be in his court, in his hands. Drew is not Anthony Richardson. He's not that freakish, but he is very athletic. He's got a tremendously loose arm. He would be like a pitcher that throws in the mid to upper 90s. Like he's got that kind of arm strength. And there is intrigue with that. The problem was last year, the preseason was brutal. I mean, it was a competition until it wasn't. And the game he was supposed to start, he had COVID, if you remember. I think that was Louis Riddick on the call of that game against the Bears, and didn't get to. And then he played the last game and had picks and just didn't see the field and the game. It just felt like, well, again, analogous to a pitcher with the game just speeding up on him. Like you just didn't get to feel his stuff, because he does have stuff. And what would you rather have? And the Seahawks have decided, what would we rather have? Would we rather drafted Levis in the second round or take one of these guys in the third or fourth round? Or do we want somebody that, like Geno, has been through some background, has been through some up and down, and has built, hopefully, a thicker skin and some maturity along the way watching others do it? Got thrown in there in Denver early, performed pretty well as a rookie. Saw coaches fired, coordinator fired, new coordinator in, the mess of the situation, COVID. I was talking to Damon about this last night, actually, and just those kids in Sam's recruiting class at Washington. I think there were 18 signees, and it was a talented class. There were a lot of really 4-star local guys. There's 5 left out of that whole class. Like what COVID did in that time frame of just the lack of development and just being locked out and away from teammates and away from that growth potential. And when you look at Drew, not that he's going to make that excuse, but comes in the league, does those things, and then kind of COVID hits, and it's a weird environment. And you're not developing, and you're not getting to form relationship, and you're not growing, and you're just stagnant, if not going backwards. And for many, they went backwards. And yeah, for him, I know he was thrilled that the Seahawks were interested in bringing him back.
Do you think Drew Lock ever makes it as a starting quarterback in the NFL?
After Geno Smith last year, I can never say never on anybody. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, right.
Where was Geno? Who was it? More addressed in one of your emails, like where Geno was ranked going into last season?
Behind Drew Lock.
By Madden? Like
outside the top 32.
65th. Not even at the top 32. Like he was
65th at his position.
Like that's third string. Like I can do the math. 32 starters, 32 backups. So he was rated by those guys as a third stringer.
That's where I would have put him.
Well, and would you say Drew Lock's more athletically gifted than Geno?
Yeah.
You just can't seem to not make poor decisions.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to just running and jumping and agility and that loose arm and everything else, Geno's more accurate.
Let me say
more
this.
Anticipatory.
Let me ask you this. Will Drew Lock factor into the Seahawks record this season? Because I think he will. That's why he's on this list for me. I think he has to start at least one game this year.
Or even just come into a second half of a game, right? Just any of these circumstances.
My gut just tells me it's going to be real hard for Geno to stay healthy for 17 full games after being healthy for 18 of them last year. I think the odds are against 35 straight starts and playing every snap for any quarterback. It's not a Geno Smith thing. It's just any quarterback. And if that's the case, Drew Lock is up next. So what he does in practice, whether or not he can command the huddle, whether or not he can make decisions, whether or not he can maintain control of the ball, those things are going to be hugely important. Because one or two games with this team, that's probably their margin for error.
And his improvement in the preseason will be a very intriguing storyline. The number 2s that he's going to be running with should be a little better than the number 2s last year. Just another growth development of the whole team and some of the receivers he's going to get and the running back that's going to be behind him and the tight ends and hopefully another year in this system of Shane's system too, which he's not had a lot of. He's not had a lot of stability. He's not been in the same place with the same system back-to-back years. So his preseason performance, not that you ever kind of like spring training want to just jump all in on preseason performance, but it'll be key. It'll be critical that he is better, that he's more efficient, that he takes care of the football, that he anticipates. Right? I mean, that's the thing about QB play, too. Like, wow, how does he compare to Geno and physical traits and all this? Yeah, but what about your anticipation and your accuracy? Because those two things, Geno won the job and won it in a big way last year.
Well, and those are my concerns, and that's why I've never, fully bought in on Drew Lock or any of that. But I would like to see, what it looks like and whether he's been able to make some of the same progress behind the scenes that Geno made last year. We didn't see it in practices. We didn't really see it in training camp, in minicamp, but maybe training camp.